Welcome to the Scarlet and Great Podcast. That's right, everyone. Welcome back to the Scarlet and Great Podcast. We're so glad you are joining us, to the thousands of listeners. That's right, the thousands of listeners listening on Scarlet and Great. We are very, very humbled and honored to be speaking to you about our beloved Buckeye football. Guys, continue to follow us on Twitter at Scarlet and Great JL for myself, at Scarlet and Great CT for our White Buffalo Corey Thompson, and you can find us on Tailgate at Scarlet and Great, GREAT Great. And also, guys, on iTunes, of course. It seems everybody's liking the show. We're getting good feedback, great feedback, and it means a lot. But please leave a rating and a comment there on iTunes. We really, really appreciate that. All right. So we want to wish a special happy birthday to our beloved coach, Urban Meyer. Urban turns, how old does he turn today, guys? 154. Sorry, I was a little old there. 54 years old. He makes 54 look pretty good. Corey, when you turned 54, did you look that good?
You know what? I'm 67 now. What do you think? So I think I'm doing pretty good.
Just joking, guys. And hey, we have a special guest on today. You guys have heard him on with us on the Scarlet and Great podcast before. Kiran Shanker. He's here with us, a former Saint X football player there in Cincinnati. You guys who follow recruiting should know Saint X well. The hometown or high school of Justin Hilliard, alma mater there. So he
also new commit Paris Johnson
yes
Jr. is Saint X. So
yeah, Kiran says he used to push Paris around. No, this guy, he didn't say that. You didn't say that. But anyways, he's been gracious enough.
You actually called him a sissy boy once, I think.
we're gonna get you in trouble next year, Paris, or excuse me, Kiran, with Paris. No, Kieran's good enough to be back with us and help break down some schematics, some X's and O's. This time we're not going to be as much in the playbook as we're going to talk about positions. This podcast is going to be a special linebackers edition podcast. This is usually a strength for Ohio State, and this is kind of a position right now where a lot of the fan base is saying, I don't know. We're hopeful, but we're not entirely... I don't know. We definitely don't have James Laurinaitis and A.J. Hawk standing back there this year, but we should have a decent group of guys. It is a question mark, but I think it will pan out. Guys, we need to get into some other news, though. Some booms we had in this last week. Corey went high and right when I put him on the spot last episode and said that Zach Harrison would be the next boom.
Yep, totally on with that one.
But then again, we got one of these guys that we didn't hear any really rumblings about, and then all of a sudden a lot of rumblings, and then a lot of rumblings the other way, and then he was a Buckeye. Guys, 4-star offensive guard, also plays center, Luke Weipler from New Jersey. He commits to OSU and Stanford. He is committed to both schools. No, I'm just kidding, but it did.
He might have been at one point.
Yeah. 2 commitment videos. This is a good get, guys, but kind of a weird one, right? Corey, why don't you talk about the weirdness, and then Kiran, I'm going to get to you, and maybe you give me a little impression of what you think about this commitment. So, Corey.
Oh, so you're saying I can't look at the film and come up with an opinion of the guy because Kiran's here? So you just... Now I don't have any value in an opinion.
Yes, that is correct. That's what
fair.
I'm saying.
I totally agree with that. Actually,
I'm glad we're on the same page. Take it away with the circus, Corey.
You know, it's interesting. Obviously, he was trending heavily towards Ohio State because of the relationships he has, and he knows he can get maybe not as good an education as Stanford, but at Ohio State you can get a world-class education still. And of course, Real Life Wednesdays is a game changer for recruits, and for a guy like Luke Weipler, who is 4.3 GPA student. God bless him for that, by the way, taking his education seriously. He's here to play school as well. It's a guy who's, I'll let Kiran talk about the film mostly, but, he looks good on film. I'll just say that. And, but obviously he started trending to Ohio State. Then he started trending to Stanford. We all thought, oh crap, I guess we lost him, because apparently what was happening is that, that education was just a little bit too much to pass up. I mean, obviously he's a very bright kid, But I guess Meyer and Schiano worked their magic last minute and basically said, "Look, this is what I think." They said to him. They just said, "Look, they're not competing for any national titles. I don't know why you'd even go there." So you come play big boy football, or you can go play little boy football and get a degree. I don't know. It's up to you.
They brought football, so they brought football back into the picture.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh yeah, I remembered I wanted to play football. Yeah, I forgot about that." But no, it's obviously he still get a great education with Alumni Network at Ohio State, and it's also closer to home. So, and then of course, according to Alex Gleitman, I always give credit where credit's due. He basically says now that Luke is as happy as can be with his decision, and he doesn't think he's going to flip because I mean it looked like when he committed. I talked to a friend of mine. I was like, I don't know if he's fully committed or not because he was going to Stanford like 48 hours ago.
Well, Well, if you guys don't know what Cory's talking about, if you followed the crystal balls at all, it was like 2 days before he committed, Buckeyes, and then like 4 flew in for Stanford. And then everybody we were, trying to knock on doors and, hey, guys, what's going on? I don't know. It just kind of looks bad. Looks like I heard one guy even say he's gone. So then all of a sudden he's calm, and then he commits to Ohio State. And that's when I was even like you, Cory, is he committed? You want to take it there too?
Apparently he's already recruiting for us. You see him on Twitter. I think it's funny because they actually, like, all these 2020 recruits, it's almost like there's an agreement, like, listen, if you're going to join this class, you need to recruit hard, okay? Because that's what they're all doing to a player. And but I will move on to Kiran now. So it's poor guy, we bring him on the show, we just let him sit there. But we're going.
Wake up, Kiran. Wake up.
Exactly. Wake up. Yeah. We're going to Kiran now. Kiran, you watched the film of him this afternoon. What is your impression? Your professional impression of him?
Yeah. Whenever you look at a high school player's highlights, you always try to look for kind of the tools they have, and only him going into his junior year, you see what he can really do at a young age. And what I was most impressed with is he's projected to play guard or center, but he had functional athleticism playing left tackle. We saw it in his footwork. I liked the word for it is mobility, basically, in terms of how low he can get, the angles he took to this second level. And you look at him as a left tackle, he may not have that requisite length, but in the interior, that's not as important. What is really important is that he's got functional strength, mobility, athleticism, and when you have all 3 of those, plus you have the fact that he's going to continue to grow and get better, that's pretty exciting for the Buckeyes.
Yes. It's funny that when Kiran's talking and he's giving that rundown, I'm thinking, man, I actually agree with what I said earlier, that it's actually more important that Kiran talk about him than me.
Yeah, Cory, when was the last time you said functional athleticism?
I don't think I've ever said that. I don't have a vocabulary that can.
That was well done, Kiran. You add a nice professional touch to this rough show. So thank you very much.
Couple of goofballs in here and Kiran.
A couple of nerds and Kiran. So I do love this, that we're getting another, like you said, a 4.3 student on our O-line. The direction, I say it and say it again, Bill Belichick told Urban Meyer, I do not want to recruit guys, or I'm not going to coach guys I don't want to be around anymore. And it seems Urban has embraced that. And Stanford's going to come out to hate us.
We took Harry Miller from him. Now we took Luke Weipler from him.
And I would think there are several other ones, it seems, off the top of my head, that Notre Dame and Stanford.
Steel Chambers. Yeah.
Steel Chamber. I almost called him Steel Cage. I knew he had an awesome name.
You know what? That's going to be his nickname. You know it is.
You know what? That'll be my nickname, if nothing else, if I get a show nickname. Cory. No, that can be Cory next week. Cory Steel Cage Thompson.
Oh, you just gave it away.
But no, these classy, well put together kids who are also very athletic. I really do like what Urban's doing here. And we got another guy that committed here just recently, which leads us to the linebacker show. A Tennessee kid. We're going down in Dixieland, guys, and pulling up recruits. 4-star, and a good 4-star. He had, I think, a 92-something rating.
Yeah, he's a high 4-star.
Yeah, inside linebacker or middle, if you're an old school guy, in the 4-3. Kane Patterson from Tennessee commits to OSU.
I just want to know if he killed his brother Abel. So
No, this one's Kane with a K.
okay,
And
good.
as you saw on Twitter, guys, Cory is very proud of his goatee. That's Kiran. I mean, you see any guys walking around?
Kiran's regretting on being on the show.
At 17, 18 years old and height. Well, he's probably 17. And
I'm 18.
No. I'm talking Kane with.
Oh, okay.
He's got the goatee of a 34-year-old man. We're gonna have to see a birth certificate.
Yeah, it's better than Cory's. So no lie.
It's pretty fantastic.
Hey, I'm letting the beard grow right now, so I ain't really worried about your all's goatee jokes.
Well, if you're gonna play, if I would say he would
It's better
be
than you,
same.
Johnny. You can't even grow facial hair.
Yeah, that's true. My job requires me to shave every day. You're welcome for your freedom. So,
I don't
anyways,
support the troops.
Guys, what do you guys think of Kane Patterson? I will just first say that I'm not sure, like I also tweeted out, that he will be joining us next season. I think he might be serving some prison time for felonious assault if you watch his huddle highlight film and the first hit on special teams. I don't know if that kid will ever play football again that he hit.
Not because he's injured, just because he's too scared at this point.
Yeah, it's like he got shark attacked while surfing. I don't know if he'll ever go back into the water. Guys, look up that film. But what do you guys think, Cory? Let's start with you. Talk about the commitment process, and then Kiran, let's do. Yeah, you can break down the film. Go.
Yeah, he's actually better at it than I am, obviously. So, look, the cool thing about this recruitment is that, first of all, it kind of came out of nowhere, even though Ohio State had been recruiting him for quite a while. But they kind of gave him an ultimatum the day before he committed. They kind of said, look, if you get in now, you got a spot. But if you don't, we're just going to move on. Almost like a Brendan Fern situation, the guy who ended up going to West Virginia, except this guy's better. And this guy could have gone to Alabama, could have gone to Clemson. And I guess, obviously Meyer giving the ultimatum made him think twice a little bit about it. But I know what people are thinking right now is that, well, Alabama wasn't going to take him. They weren't ready to take him right this second, but he was right high on their board. Anyway, you watch the film on the kid, and I just will repeat what Johnny says. It wasn't just that hit, by the way, Johnny. It was every hit. Even when he had the ball as a running back, he just like, okay, who can I run over? I'm going to catch that kid. I'm going to get him. He's Bobby Boucher in a way. It just racking people up. Kiran, what else did you see that goes beyond me, looking at shiny things saying, ooh, he hits hard?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just by watching his highlights, seeing what he does well, I do have to say that he's a very violent football player. And I mean, he may not be an elite athlete per se, but he's got good baseline explosiveness. I think he's got great feet. So he won't really like light up the combine per se, but as a functional athlete, hate to throw that term out too much, but he's got it. And he's also got a lot of room to grow on his frame. So a guy who I can think could be pretty solid here for the Buckeyes. Absolutely.
And he's listed at 6'1", 225. I don't know if he doesn't play. I don't know about the league, the football he's in Tennessee there. He looks like the biggest guy on the field. And maybe that's just because when he hits people, they disappear. But he,
style.
It's hard to believe some of these roster weights on football players. Like if you just stand next to any of them, you're like, you're 220, really? This guy, I can certainly believe he's 225 pounds without pads. He looks very big on the field. I think he will fill out well. A comparison I heard that I kind of like was a faster, tough Borland. And
that's actually what me and Cory said before the show when we were talking about it.
Yeah, well, so there you go. And if we all could enhance one thing on tough Borland, it would be his speed. So we're going to be happy about having this guy. I hope he projects well to the middle position because, as you guys are about to see, we are chock full of outside linebackers. The inside, we hope to develop and work on our depth and figure some things out. So, guys, moving on into the current linebacker situation. We had a mess at times last year. So, Cory and I have given our take throughout the episodes on what we think went wrong, kind of just guessing and stabbing at it. Kiran, I want to hear from you. What do you think went wrong last year? Why the dysfunction? Why this point on our defense of the linebacker position at The Ohio State University? Usually a strong point. Why do you think there was so many question marks last year?
Well, I think honestly because we saw the unit have two pretty bad performances against Iowa and Oklahoma, which also happened to be the team's only two losses. So, I mean, if you look at the Oklahoma game, you see a team that liked to spread the ball out. I mean, spread their offense out as well as use a lot of play action, use that H-back. And when you play a lot of single high, cover one, and your linebackers are caught in conflict, it opened up a lot of easy completions. And that's really what I take away from that game, is that there was a little breakdown in fundamentals. They weren't exactly put in the most favorable positions against Iowa, even though the entire defense, except for Denzel Ward, seemed to be lost on that day. There was a similar situation where you had Iowa's coaches really utilize their tight ends in the play action pass game, and our linebackers a lot of time were caught out of position. And but if you actually look at the Wisconsin and the Michigan State games, you'll see almost the complete opposite. You'll see our guys flying against the run. And it's funny because Michigan State, I think Jerome Baker and Dante Booker were out. And if I believe so, it was Malik Harrison on the outside, Chris Worley playing Sam, and then it was Tuff Borland on the inside. They did a phenomenal job shutting down that run game. And then Wisconsin, they did a good job in coverage. Jerome Baker played the best game probably of the season for him. So
yes,
it was a lot of good and bad, honestly. And those two games you look at and you just see, we could see what was wrong was, a breakdown in fundamentals, and just honestly, those were two outliers to me that if you look at what the unit needs to do to move forward, you look at those two games. And then you look at Wisconsin and Michigan State, that's the apex of what our unit could be.
So quickly then, what do you think? You said there were, how was it you worded it there? I lost my train of thought trying to keep up with you, but I want to know what you think about you said fundamentals. You said a breakdown of fundamentals, and most of us are like, what do you mean Ohio State linebackers broken down in fundamentals? But it was a new linebackers coach. No, you say by the fickle. So what do you think of their mental capacity? What do you think of the mental processing? Did it seem a step behind last year, Kiran?
Yeah, I mean, just to give an example, in that Iowa game, Chris Worley, in my opinion, was probably the smartest linebacker, probably the most smartest and experienced linebacker in that room. And then you see him getting caught flat-footed off of an easy play-action read, and the tight end gets free up the seam. At that point, it doesn't seem like a guy like that would make a mistake like that. And in that case, it seems like the preparation in those weeks was probably not what it needed to be against those teams. So to narrow it down, I think the key problem is getting these guys prepared the week, and very, for a better term, they need to be more confident coming in. And I think Greg Schiano, with having a 10th assistant, he's going to spend a lot of time with the linebackers since he won't have to be coaching safeties. I think Bill Davis, just by listening to him, I've always been impressed with the way he speaks, with his knowledge. I think last year coaching in college for the first time, and I don't think it was his career, but it was the first time coaching linebackers in college.
Actually, it was his career. I actually looked it up before he got hired, and I was like, wow, he's never actually coached in college.
Well, so that kind of your answer right there. Yeah, that's your answer right there.
Yeah, because in the NFL, he's not necessarily from a week-to-week basis trying to implement he's probably just learning how to implement fundamentals on a week-to-week basis on literally 18 to 22-year-old kids. So
I remember
hopefully this year Greg Schiano can help him.
You hope so.
Implement it on a week-to-week basis.
Well, I remember an interview he gave where he said the biggest difference between college and pro he was just schematic every week rather than...
Yes, that's what I basically meant
and
to say, yeah.
During the college, it's 70, he said it's like 70-75% culture-based. Like, it's all about preaching culture in the room rather than schematic. Yeah, well, it's more motivation than it is schematic, I guess.
And that makes sense why you could see how much more complex a pro playbook is than a college playbook. These guys it almost seems like they're on their own faking their blitzes and stuff because their fundamentals are so solid that it does not need taught. You just need to teach them the playbook. So
yeah. And Greg Schiano knows how many athletes we have on this defense. He's not trying to overcomplicate the scheme. He does a lot of good things. But one of the things that he likes to do is to keep the defense simple enough that we can have our guys fly around and make plays. And that's why we run a lot of man coverage, or if we are running more complicated coverages, we try to keep it pretty consistent from a week-to-week basis. And that will come when we play teams like Iowa and Oklahoma that run a lot of play action. Hopefully we can make better adjustments this year and we can learn from those mistakes.
Okay, so let's get into the actual people in the positions. I want to get into the outside linebackers positions, the weak side or the will or the Sam linebackers and the strong side. All right, the will and the Sam. For most of us, we just say the guy's not in the middle. The guy not playing middle linebacker. The guy that's going to be in the left or the right side of the formation, playing, run stopping or playing somebody.
And that's just in the base defense.
Yeah, or matching up with the tight end. Those guys, we seem to have. We had a lot of those guys last year. We had a lot of outside guys, and we have outside guys this year. So, who's in contention, and why do you think? With the Harrisons and the Bookers and the Joneses and even the Brownings, who you think you can move around though? These are a lot of traditional outside guys. Break down this a little bit for us, Kiran. The Will and the Sam in Schiano's defense, and then who? Just briefly throw out 4 or 5 names who you think your top, say 5 in contention.
Yeah, in Schiano's defense, you will see the Sam and the Will were it's more interchangeable than it was in Chris Ash's defense because we don't run as much quarters coverage, which is a pattern match defense. We do run more single high coverages, so more man coverage with Schiano. So what I've been hearing from Cory's inside info is that Malik Harrison is pretty much slated to earn one of those starting spots. He played a lot of Sam last year, and last year I thought he made progress. He has impressive length. He's explosive. That really showed against the run. You can watch the Michigan State game where he played almost every single snap and made a lot of plays against the run. I do think he has the potential to be a plus coverage guy. He was actually one of our designated nickel guys last year, but at times he did show a lack of instincts in zone coverage. And although he could be like a matchup guy because of his size and length, I think he needs to be more consistent in his technique, which he's a young guy. He was a true sophomore last year, so I think he's going to take a next step in his junior year. Dante Booker was a guy who, in his 4th year on campus, earned the starting spot last year, and then he got hurt. He was out in that Michigan State game, and it seemed like maybe, I can't remember if he lost the starting job, but it seemed like people are growing a little impatient, maybe because he wasn't the player we thought he would exactly be. And I think a large part of it is, even though he's a really rangy and athletic guy, he's not as instinctive as you'd like to see from a traditional linebacker. I think in his 5th year, if he really shows during camp that he's picked up things more, he's going to be more physical, more traditional, then I think he earns that starting spot at will, most likely. But I think they're really going to give Keandre Jones and Pete Werner every shot they can for either of those two guys to either take that will spot or get significant playing time at Sam, because those two guys could play either Sam or will. I think Keandre was at Sam during spring practice and Pete Werner was at will, but both of those guys are versatile in that they can be interchangeable.
I've heard them say that too, that Schiano likes to interchange a guy because
yes,
you don't want to have a guy over on the will side of the defense, the weak side, and say, well, he's not necessarily my pass coverage guy, and then the running back run a route to that side, and then you're like, well, he's screwed. So you want some flexibility there. So, but you were thinking in Booker's case, and I would agree with this, and anybody who's watching, where he kind of he's fine athletically, but he watches. He doesn't just explode. So you don't want that guy on an island in pass coverage a lot of times. So just as a protected guy over there as a run stopper at the will spot, you like him there. Who do you like then of these two new guys the best over at the Sam spot, the better guy in pass coverage?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think Malik Harrison could obviously be a fine starter at Sam, but I really like the upside that Keandre and Pete can bring, because as a recruit, we know Keandre was a top 5 linebacker in the nation. We were all impressed with the traits he flashed in his highlight film. He's got playing time on special teams, but we haven't really seen him in a lot of live action.
He's up to 225 pounds now, from what I understand, too, so he's actually gained the proper weight that he's needed to gain, because he came in at 205.
Yeah. So it's taken a couple years for him to maybe get up to speed, but he could really take off this year. Pete Werner came in last year after being flipped from Notre Dame. He actually came into his senior season of high school hurt. I got to watch him play against my team when we played Cathedral, and I heard from our offensive lineman that he was an impressive player. You know, coming back from injury is not easy because he tore his labrum, I believe, before the season, but it seemed that he got better throughout his high school season. Earned the attention from Ohio State, and then came in and didn't stop because now, from the inside info we're hearing, he's been incredibly impressive. He was impressive.
They're also saying they might put him in middle.
Oh, he could definitely play inside. I think we're keeping him outside because right now in his development, I think he's about 226, and we probably want guys in the middle to be about 235 at least. So that's why we pretty much have him slated to play on the outside only right now.
Makes sense.
So, they like they must like his thinking ability and his instincts to be able to play middle.
He has a lot of range too. So I feel like he's a guy who's got the instincts, but he also has the athleticism to pair with that. And at linebacker, that's a pretty great combination to have.
Yeah, well, you made a good point, Kiran. You can't just take he's a good solid system guy on the outside and put him in the middle because he's the next man up. Because Cory, what happened when we tried that with Chris Worley? He was a little small.
Didn't go well, yeah.
No, and
he just wasn't used to the technique and the cerebral part. Even though he's a very smart player, it was just a completely different
just played
position.
outside his entire college career outside of that, and he actually excelled on the outside. When he went back to the outside, Michigan State game comes to mind. He was on the edge constantly, yeah.
Put him on the outside and say, hey, go run down screen passes and sweep plays. He cuts through it like butter. But, in that middle position, it's kind of, well, what is my job here? So, guys, we have all these guys.
Not to mention we have two freshmen, Kevon Pope and Dallas Gant, who are not going to be in the too deep necessarily, but they're going to be, they might get some mop-up time because they're actually, from what I understand, they're both killing it in practice. And with Gant we knew about, but I just heard about Pope a couple days ago from a friend. He says Pope actually exceeding their expectations.
Wow. So we got these guys immediately that are in contention on the outside. On the will, we're thinking, you have where you can go with Werner, or you can go with Keandre Jones, you can go with Booker, and also over at the Sam, you can go Malik Harrison or Werner, and all these other guys. You have 4 or 5 that we can rotate on the outside. We don't know how that combination will work out, but the middle, the Mike. This is where we're kind of scratching our heads and saying, you guys might be saying, well, you haven't talked about Baron Browning. He's a murder weapon. Baron Browning. Okay. He to me is a much bigger version of Darren Lee. So you think of him on the edge, and I think that's where he played a lot in high school. So just because of his sheer athleticism and maybe being able to make up for some thinking or whatever, maybe we're looking at him for the middle guys. So what do you think about him in the middle?
Yeah. To start off, basically about the middle linebacker position. We talked about Tough earlier and how he might not be an elite athlete, but from what I saw, he pays a lot of attention to detail. For a redshirt freshman to really have his understanding of just coming in against Army and having his understanding of how to defend the run, I think it was really impressive because it really added a stabilizing factor to our defense. We had these blue chip athletes all around him, and when we put him in, we could count on him to really plug gaps. And he's not even the super huge traditional gap plugger. He's still a little bit undersized, honestly. But with him out for at least the start of the season, the two guys really competing are Justin Hilliard and Baron Browning for the Mike position. And to start off with Hilliard was a guy that I was able to see in high school. He went to St. X. I came in as a freshman, and I was able to kind of watch him play a lot. And people say he's a former 5-star. Why exactly was he a former 5-star? Well, not only did he dominate excellent competition, you look at his testing numbers at the opening in 2014, he actually had a 40 of a 4.72 on the laser, great short shuttle time, and a vertical jump of 37 inches. So just from a pure testing standpoint, he shows borderline elite explosiveness. And he tested actually better than Saquon Barkley in terms of the overall Nike store, which is pretty insane. But in terms of
go ahead and say that again. And at the opening, he tested higher than who?
Saquon Barkley. who drastically improved upon his numbers at the NFL Combine. But just in high school, he outdid him at the high school Combine. But if you look at what I've been able to see with him on the
yeah, pretty good. Hey, Kiran, back up for a second, though. So break down the middle thing for us. So what exactly, briefly, if you can tell us, are the responsibilities of the middle? Why is it so different from the outside?
It takes a lot of recognition skills and physicality in terms of being able to trust yourself to be in a position. And you basically have to read the play in a millisecond and place yourself in the right position against a run. If it's a pass, it's a little bit different. But in terms of just against the run, you have to – it's a lot of instincts. And great athletes can be great mics and vice versa. But it really does take a pretty cerebral player to be an elite Mike linebacker. And I think Tough, not an elite athlete, but his cerebral ability as a young player was really important for the defense last year. And then for what Justin showed on the field, we've only been able to see him in the spring games, and I paid pretty close attention. For someone who literally lost, so his freshman year, he had a torn meniscus and he played through it, and then he tore his bicep in December right before bowl practice, so he was out all of his second year spring practice, and then came back for fall camp, earned a spot on special teams. 3 games in, he tore his other bicep, and he was out until the next spring. And the next spring, he was pretty impressive. He was making some noise, didn't end up earning any playing time the next year except for on special teams. But for the first 2 spring games I was able to see, for someone who's not really had a lot of in-game experience, he showed the same instincts I saw in high school, and he added like an extra element of explosiveness that maybe Tough doesn't exactly have. So he does offer a lot of upside as a run defender. In terms of his pass coverage skills, he does kind of have that same stiffness, but as Tough did. But if you look at this year's spring game, it seemed like he knew a lot of the pass plays were as they were happening, which allowed him to put himself in the right position. So in terms of what we've been hearing, Urban, like in the press conference, said he's been through a lot. You know, he raved about his character, said that he considers himself a Hilliard fan. And so he's one of the pieces in this Mike linebacker puzzle. But when you talk about Baron Browning, he obviously wasn't a guy I was able to watch a lot of in high school, but just basically through the research I was able to do, he had a coach that actually knew how to use this athletic skill set. His coach knew that he was the best athlete on the field, so put him at tight end, safety, receiver, linebacker, even put him at corner. So, I mean, he was really able to flash.
But did he sell popcorn? That's what I want to know.
Can he sell popcorn? Can he replace Larry Culpepper since Dr. Pepper got rid of him? Cory, chime in here and talk to us about this kid. And do you see him flashing over to the middle? He didn't start there, and since it is a thinking or cerebral position, I know that's a disadvantage. But do you think that athletic ability can make up for it?
You know, it can. But what I noticed from him last year, even in mop-up duty, is he didn't. I mean, look, Kiran actually and I talked about this privately, and Kiran's right. It's hard to judge a kid when he's trying to learn and figure it out because the middle is such a different position than the outside. So, but I didn't see a lot of attack with him, and I wanted to see that because even with Raekwon, but granted, Raekwon had come from the middle in high school. He had played the middle. Raekwon his freshman year, you could see it's like, holy crap, this guy's good. Put him in now. Because he was getting tackles for loss. He knew where the play was going. Barron's a little behind the 8 ball on that. That's not his fault. It's just not where he's played his whole career. But if the light goes on for him, he could be not only a great middle linebacker, an elite middle linebacker, if that light goes on for him, because he's so freakishly athletic. He's a hard hitter. We saw that in high school. He will attack the ball. It's just you have to get that to that period where you're not having to think.
Absolutely.
And he attacked off the edge a lot in high school, and I think that
he
goes
played a
back
lot.
to
He actually played a lot of safety in high school, just because
that's an advantageous position for a freak athlete. I told Cory it kind of looked like his coach was saying, "Hey, you're the best player out here. Stand on the edge and get to the quarterback and or running back." I mean, just turn.
They
him
blitzed
loose.
him a lot too. Absolutely. Like who I compared him when I first saw him as a high school player, I was like, in terms of an athletic profile, he's close to a Jalen Smith. And before Jalen Smith's injury, he was going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL because of his instincts at the will linebacker position. He was 6'2", 240. Malik Jefferson was similar, but didn't end up putting it all together at Texas. But he still was 3rd round pick. But based on what I saw in the spring game, we'll start with the real positive first. So there was one play in particular that stands out to me. He was actually out in the slot, lined up inside of a slot receiver.
240-pound linebacker guarding the slot receiver.
Yep. Yeah. So the slot receiver was actually running a dig route, and when Burrow saw that Browning was matching up with him inside of leverage, is basically man-to-man with no help inside, he's like, oh, I've got him. I'm going to get a completion here. And then Browning seamlessly flipped his hip like a slot, almost like a slot safety defender, and ran the route with him off the inside break. And then Burrow held the ball and was like, oh, crap, I have to go to my next read, which was to the left, and it ended up getting broken up by the quarter safety because he like thought he had a mismatch, but he didn't. And that's really what Baron Browning offers as a pass coverage guy. He's the type of guy who can match up with athletic tight ends. He basically has the range of a safety in terms of his ability to cover the middle of the field as a zone defender. I mean, that's just a rare skill set that, like, I'm not sure if anybody else on the roster may have, because a lot of it has to do with his length too. But in terms of how he played
that's
against
really good stuff. That's really good film.
He's a top 15 draft pick if he puts it all together. It's just a fact.
Absolutely.
Kieran, but you talking about him the instinct sound like a middle guy there, but him flipping his hips and changing in pass coverage, now you're making him sound like a Sam. So you
got to get him on the field. Let's put it that way. He has to be on the field.
Yeah. I think we're going to go into a little bit later who we think is starting. I think all of us have him on there. We just don't know where. So is he a middle, guys, just real quick, yes or no? Is he a middle through and through, or would you say it's 50-50 whether he ends up 50-50 on the outside?
50-50 in my opinion.
Okay, I got to get into more detail about that. But
okay, go ahead.
I think since he played, like we just said, he played a bunch of different positions in high school. So against the run, he still has a lot to learn because that's going to be through experience. I think he's a natural playmaker. I think he's smart from what we've heard, and he's a hard worker. I think he just needs to get more experience against the run as a Mike linebacker. He moved a lot. He played Will last spring, and then they moved him to Mike, and then they moved him back to Will at the beginning of spring. Then Tough Borland got hurt, so they moved him back to Mike. So since Borland is hurt, I think the plan is, as of right now, I think most fans can agree that Browning, from an athletic standpoint, is more talented than Hilliard. But from a mental standpoint, Hilliard provides a lot of stability on the base downs against the run. So what I think we might end up doing is, if we're going to have Browning play exclusively as a middle linebacker, we're going to make sure that he's in every single passing situation, regardless if we're in the nickel package or not. If it's 2nd and 7, we're probably putting him in. If it's 3rd and short, we're probably going to put him in, honestly, if it's like 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2. So you'll see him play in all passing situations. You'll probably see him play in the different nickel packages we have. And then Hilliard will see probably meaningful snaps when teams are more likely to run the ball. So it'll be more, I think it might end up being more situational, because I think both of these guys are going to show out a lot in camp. From what we've been hearing, they've both taken a lot of steps.
2 5-star linebackers sharing the middle. There's worse problems to have. I mean,
yeah.
That's why I was so excited to see.
It's just tweaking this to get your best athletes on the field in the best spot. And when you got 2 guys that have experience at both positions, that sounds really nice. So, guys, I'm going to, real quickly, so we didn't talk about a big-time recruit just because he's very green. I'm talking about Taraja Mitchell. So, yeah, is that where you guys are at with that one? Just too green, too many people in front, but he'll be very good in the middle.
I think he plays mop-up this year. I really don't think he redshirts.
Yeah, I agree. I think Taraja...
He's the only true middle on the whole team right now, actually.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I thought
I'd say that Hilliard is a true middle linebacker, honestly.
Well, I mean,
in terms of his skill set.
Fair enough, yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem the staff is locked on him at middle.
Yeah, absolutely. They're still probably waiting to see what he can do in fall camp. And if he plays as well as we think he should, that's why you're going to see him and Browning split time. But if he doesn't, then you might see Browning be the full-time starter. I'm just basing it off of what we know, honestly. But I think Taraja...
Camp starts in 2 weeks.
Him on
and I think this is what speaks to how true of a middle Taraja is. That I heard a rumor that the staff begged him to enroll early.
Yeah, they did.
And when you have all this linebacker talent ahead of you, but they say, please, you, we need you in here early. I think that speaks to what they feel like he can do in the middle. And real quick, guys, so is Browning going to be granted? Did he get granted, or did he even apply for a medical red shirt last year?
No, he's a sophomore.
No, he wasn't hurt last year. He was hurt in the spring, and then he was healthy by fall camp.
Okay, I didn't know in with the new rules with playing enough quarters. So they're, we may only see Taraja and Baron Browning on the field 1 year at Ohio State if Browning ends up going soon, going early. But guys, I want to roll into who we're talking about these guys at different skill set. Muddy up the waters a little bit with some football lingo, but I just want to get into the starting three. Who is your starting three? We're going to start with Cory. We'll go Kiran, and then I'll end it out with Sam, middle, Will. Strong to weak. Who is your starting three briefly and why?
In my opinion, Malik Harrison has to be a starter. He's got plenty of experience. He's shown out the first couple of years. I'm not saying he hasn't made mistakes. In fact, the Michigan game, he missed a few tackles that kind of surprised me. But he's got speed, athleticism, size. He reminds me of Josh Perry in a lot of ways. And now he's getting that kind of experience to where he could become a Josh Perry type. And honestly, that stability on the outside where he can set the edge with ease. Maybe he's not the greatest cover guy in the world, but his size brings a lot of to the table. In the middle, in my opinion, I like stability. I like a guy who knows what he's looking at. I would like to see Hilliard get the shot. Not to mention, I just want to see what he can do. And we've seen him in spring games where if he hits that gap fast enough, he's getting to the ball carrier. I agree with Kiran. What Kiran's saying is going to be like a rotational type thing, but I would like to go with a guy who I know for sure pretty much has it set in stone what's going on with the offense, because the middle linebacker is tasked with setting the entire front seven half the time. So, on the other outside, I really want to see Keandre Jones get a shot just to see what he can do. But how do you keep Browning off the field? That's the question.
Yeah, you have no Baron Brown. So you have over there at Sam, you have Harrison, then you have you in the middle.
I think Browning's the first guy off the bench if he's not starting. I mean, I'm just guessing right now anyway, but I think Jones gets a legitimate shot to start, especially the weight he's put on. His in one of our Facebook groups, the OSU Bucknuts or whatever. I think his mother or his aunt is in the group, and she commented on him one time and said he's going to be starting this year. He's up in weight, yada yada. I mean, that might be bias, obviously, but it's like obviously the coaches are very high on him if she seems pretty happy about where things are going. But I want to see him get a shot. But again, Browning has to play, whether rotationally or what, he has to play.
Okay, Kiran, your three from Will or from Sam to Will. What do you got?
For what I think will happen, I think you'll see Malik Harrison as a full-time Sam, maybe with a guy like Pete Werner rotating in at times. And then at Mike, I think you'll see, like I just said, Hilliard on base downs, Browning in any passing situations. And then at Will, I think you'll probably see Keandre Jones and potentially a rotation with Dante Booker. What I think should happen is Hilliard at Mike, Harrison at Sam, and then Browning at Will, and then our nickel package could be, for two linebackers, it would be Browning and Jones, and then for three linebackers, it could be Browning, Jones, and Harrison, because our three linebacker nickel package is also a pressure package as well. So I think Harrison's a really lengthy, good blitzer. So is Browning, and Keandre can be a great cover specialist.
You're not even just saying our starters. You're going, here's our rotational packages.
Yeah. So, Kiran, let me ask you again. Kiran, from left to right, from Sam to base defense, who do you got? You got Malik Harrison. You got
I want to see how much
Hilliard.
detail he goes into when he plays Madden, like auto subs and stuff like that.
On the Will.
That
I bet he could whack somebody pretty good in Madden. So you have Harrison, Hilliard, and on the Will starting base, you have Browning.
Yeah, I'll just keep it at that, even though I think Browning probably ends up being a rotational guy at Mike. Browning at Will, Hilliard at Mike, Malik Harrison at Sam would be the optimal starting three.
Okay. We're all going to differ a little bit. I'm going to agree, though. I think the Sam, though, I think we all have unanimous. Malik Harrison, I like him in pass coverage. I know he wasn't perfect, but look, linebackers are going to get beat by running backs and slots. That's actually what you want to do a lot of time. You want to get that matchup. When he ran in, I think it was the the injury game in Michigan State, and he ran a wheel route step for step with the running back. I said, "Oh, it's the first time I've seen that all year." I like him. I like him in pass coverage. I was upset at his missed tackle on the outside against Michigan, but we won't talk about that. I like him. I like him out there. In the middle, I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to say Baron Browning just because he just screams middle linebacker to me, even though we see him on the edge. He's bigger, and I think his athleticism will help make up for what could be his mind not firing as fast as another guy who Kiran has talked me into this, but at a different position, and I know it's a little against the grain. I'm going to say Hilliard because basically Kiran's kind of got me on the Hilliard train now. But I think not just because he's a true will. Not just because he's a true will so much, because I don't think he's a guy you just hide and run support, but he's the other really good that's your three best athletes on the field that are also thinkers. So I'm going Harrison, Browning, and Hilliard for the win. So Cory, recap again. Cory, you have Harrison, Hilliard, and Jones.
Yeah, I think Hilliard's going to be the surprise start, in my opinion. I think there's always like that. You see that depth chart come out after camp, and you're like, I didn't hear anything about that guy. How's he starting? All I've heard is this other guy.
Yeah.
And then I think
you have kind of been on him for a while.
I like Hilliard. I'm pulling for Hilliard, and I actually started pulling for him more once I got to know Kiran because of his connection with him. But no, I mean, I think nobody's going to hear about Hilliard in camp, and all of a sudden Hilliard starting middle linebacker. You're like, well, where did that come from? I think that's what's gonna happen. That's my opinion.
So you got Harrison, Hilliard, Jones. For Kiran, we had Harrison, and then you had Hilliard as well, right?
Yeah, and then Browning at will.
And Browning. And for myself, you had Harrison, Browning, and then Hilliard. So Cory's the lone guy going with Jones. It's interesting, none of us going with Dante Booker. And he's the senior.
The opportunity, though.
He's the opportunity.
He missed all spring. It's just going to be tough with so many young, talented guys chomping at the bit.
Guys, I saw a picture once of him standing next to Raekwon McMillan. He is jacked. He's huge. He's a 5-star recruit, all these things, but you've seen it. It just doesn't play out in the field. Guys, let's wrap it up. If you don't have a good coach, it doesn't matter. So, again, let's go quickly into Bill Davis, Kiran, and I'll let you give the bulk of this. All right. So give me just 30 seconds on your opinion of Bill Davis, and do you think things will get better? Because last year we heard, right, that he wasn't coaching fundamentals. He said, I got to teach you the schematics, and you should know the fundamentals. So what's your opinion of that?
I think he's obviously going to look at what went wrong last year, and as someone who believes in him, and as someone who's very optimistic, I think with Schiano as an added guy to kind of walk him through what he needs to do differently, he's going to be more than ready to tackle on the challenges and really get these guys ready for next season and during the season as well, doing different things week to week to get them ready. All
right. I like it. Cory, quickly, your take.
I need to see it first, and then I'll actually believe in him.
So Kiran was a good defender of Bill Davis. He said, look, he'll change, and because he knows he can't get away with it. And I said, well, how does he know he can't get away with it now and not last year when the linebacking core stunk up the joint? Well, Kiran had a decent counter. Okay? Kiran had a decent counter, and he said, yeah, no 10th assistant, no Alex Grinch. Schiano can come off of the safeties, and he can get down and tell Bill Davis, look, they're kids. You have to teach them some technique and fundamentals, not just schematics. And yeah, so I don't know, call me Mr. Middle of the Road. I do have to see it to believe it, but Kiran has made me more optimistic. All right, guys, we really appreciate you tuning in. This has been another episode of the Scarlet and Great podcast. Thank you so much for the support. We'll get back to our old selves next week with a weight loss update for Cory and everything else. Guys, see you next week. Good night. God bless. And go Bucks.